So I'm going to talk to you about our forthcoming Vietnam holiday, which is at the end of October this year. Excuse me. We ran this holiday for the first time in November last year, and we had a great time. So I just wanted to share some of the images that we took whilst we were there. And I shall say at the end, thank you to all those who have supplied images, but actually, I should say at the beginning that guests that were with me in Vietnam this year and one of our guides, well, not one of our guides, the other guide than me, we all sort of have contributed to this presentation. Have to say that the best bird photographs are definitely not mine. So the holiday, we've made this holiday slightly longer than the one that we ran in November, just because we thought it would be nice to take it at a slightly more relaxed pace. So I'll tell you a bit about the holiday, but before I do that, I just wanted to acknowledge that there are one or two people that contribute to putting our holidays together, and this, some of you will recognise, is Tanya. And Tanya is the one that does a huge amount of work behind the scenes to make our holidays go as well as they do. And the guides come up with the ideas about the holidays. And then Tanya and Suzanne put the holidays together and organise everything for us. So I just wanted to kind of flag up Tanya because without her, we really wouldn't be able to do these holidays. And this is Tanya enjoying a holiday of her own, actually. I think this is her in New Zealand, looking like she's having a great time. So thanks to Tanya for all that she does for us. And I think all the information that she sends all of you, I think that's one of the things that you all value, is that sort of face-to-face contact and knowing at the end of the phone who you're going to be speaking to. So there's my little nod to Tanya. And on this trip, there's a picture here of one of our guests standing holding Birds of Vietnam. And Birds of Vietnam is a fabulous bird guide that was put together by Richard Craig, who is on the left, and obviously you can see me on the right. Bit of a blurred photograph because we were all excited at the beginning of our trip, but Richard wrote this book in partnership with our guide Min. And Min was a huge contribution to the holiday. So between Tanya, Richard and Min, I think we had a great itinerary and everything really went pretty well. In the background, so I'll be mentioning some of the guests that you will recognise throughout the trip, but two of the guests, Pete and Sarah, actually extended this holiday. So they had a couple of days before and a couple of days at the end. So that's always possible with Vietnam. You might feel that you want to spend a bit more time enjoying the culture of Vietnam, which we touch on during the holiday, but obviously primarily we're a wildlife holiday. And this is me and Min. Min has got a great smile, an incredible birder, and he contributed so much to the trip, really made it very special for us. He was there with all his different first aid, some of his traditional remedies, always there with a smile, always there promptly and extremely flexible. So he was great to work with, and I know all the guests really enjoyed him too. So you'll have to bear with me looking down at my notes as we go. I may end up waffling on, but I'll try and stick to a bit of a script. So here we are, just looking at a map of Vietnam. So you will see Vietnam is in orange. It's a very long, thin country, and it's sandwiched between Cambodia, Laos, and China. It's got a huge coastline, and our trip takes us from the south. Ho Chi Minh City, which was formerly Saigon, is actually still referred to as Saigon. Sometimes it's a bit easier to say Saigon than Ho Chi Minh City. So we start there. So we flew into Ho Chi Minh City, and I can't remember how we flew there now. I think we went Vietnam Airlines, do a direct flight from Heathrow to Ho Chi Minh City. And we made our way from Ho Chi Minh, working our way up to the north and up to Hanoi, which is where we flew back from. Most of our transport was in a really fabulous bus. We had a small, I guess it was about a 25-seater air-conditioned bus. So when we were traveling, everybody had their own seat and we could spread out. It was great, really good driver. On this little diagram, you can see the green strip is where we drove, and the big, thick pink strip is where we took a short flight from Dalat to Da Nang. So we did do quite a lot of traveling. I think whilst we're traveling, we're watching Vietnam go by, and sometimes it's just quite nice to relax. I know some of the guests just enjoyed sort of doing a bit of reading whilst we were traveling, but just watching what's happening, what people are doing, the different crops that we see growing. Always something to look at. And because we're traveling from north to south, we're obviously traveling through different styles of farming. We're traveling through rice paddies, past pepper plantations, and it's also getting cooler as we go north. So we arrive in Ho Chi Minh City early morning, and this is what we're met with is an absolute chaos of mopeds. I think there's sort of more mopeds than people in Vietnam. It's just, well, that's an exaggeration. I think there's something like 100 million people and there's 50 million motorcycles or some such. But there's an awful lot of mopeds and they're just everywhere. And this is what we were met with when we first arrived. And as we drive out of the city, we see these sort of phenomenal skyscrapers, a very modern city, Ho Chi Minh. And then before too long, we're out of the city and we're approaching our first accommodation, which is at a reserve called Cat Tien. So I'll tell you a little bit more about the trip. In general, the trip we chose to go to lots of different locations, so different habitats in different national parks. And the focus obviously is to see birds, as much wildlife as possible. But on this trip, we were also looking for some of the endangered primates in Vietnam. And I'm not a big person on primates, to be honest, but I remember seeing a program, probably David Attenborough program, where they showed us these absolutely stunningly beautiful, colourful primates, and Vietnam is where you'll find them. So that was one of the big focuses of the trip, to go to different locations where we would see these different primates. Primates being these particular primates were the Duke langur, which I'll come back to as we go. So we went through different habitats. We're staying in different accommodation, which I'll talk to as we go. So I think so I just wanted to tell you about temperatures. So the temperatures, it was quite warm here. You can see it's quite warm. I don't think we were ever in having a prolonged period of a lot of heat, and certainly as we traveled north, it did cool down quite a bit. And we were actually in Vietnam when there was some unseasonal weather, and there'd been quite a lot of flooding, which was quite unusual. And that, I think, did affect our trip a little bit, in that it affected some of the birds, and certainly in some of the areas it was quite difficult to do the birding because of the weather. However, we still saw some fabulous stuff, which I will tell you a bit more about. So we're taking a short trip over this river, and our first accommodation is these rather cute bungalows, which is it's in a national park. So the bungalows are quite basic, but they are in beautiful surroundings, and these trees were absolutely full of birds the first thing in the morning, and actually throughout the day, birds and butterflies were all around us. Well, you can see this actually was the view from the steps of my accommodation, just sort of looking out in these trees, and these trees are full of minivets, and I think we had purple violet cuckoo here, just fabulous birding, and so which meant that I didn't rest as much as I should have done because I was too busy birding. So we did have a bit of jet lag, which is great actually to arrive in this place where we had chance to rest. So a lot of our birding was done early morning. Some of it was walking along trails, and some of it was going out on the back of a sort of open back kind of little trucked kind of thing. So early morning, birding after breakfast, and then we would have a rest during the day, and then go back out birding when it was a bit cooler in the afternoon. So this was our lunch spot. Paul here eating a massive bowl of soup. Most of the cuisine we had in Vietnam was Vietnamese cuisine, and I think probably by the end of the trip, some folk felt they would have quite liked a pizza. And I think when we run this trip again, if we see a pizza cafe, we might just pop in. The Vietnamese cuisine was fabulous. For vegetarians, I was the only vegetarian, although Paul's wife, Caroline, liked vegetarian food as well. There was a lot of tofu, and I think by the end of the trip, we were all pretty fed up of tofu. However, we didn't starve, and there was lots of fabulous vegetables, and certainly plenty of food and lots of lovely fruit as well. So this is us off into Cat Tien National Park. Fantastic place for birding, one of the first national parks in Vietnam. So we'd be going along these trails, we get dropped off, and then we'd we'd do some walking. Some of these images, this is buff-cheeked gibbon. These were around in the around the accommodation. We'd wait to the sound of them calling in the morning. Beautiful, beautiful gibbons. This is the female, the male's black or dark brown. Now I have to confess, one of the negative sides of Cat Tien was the leeches, and I think most of you have probably come across leeches before. So along the trails, because it had been quite wet, we did see quite a lot of leeches. I'm going to move off this image now. This is me sporting my leech socks, courtesy of Heather. Thank you very much. She sent these to me in the post, and I think they probably protected me quite well. Not such a fashion statement, but just proving that I wore them, Heather. So leeches this was the only place leeches were an issue, and Min was very used to dealing with them. And so I think Pat and Martin had come along with some antiseptic spray. So a quick spray of antiseptic and elastoplast, and all was fine, and off we'd go. So nobody has, as far as I'm aware, suffered any long-lasting ill effects. But I have to say that I think that leeches were probably the most unpopular creature that we came across on this trip. So here we are in Cat Tien National Park. It looks as though we're standing under this tree. We actually weren't, but we were, I can't remember what we were looking for here, but we're just sort of listening to the sounds of the forest, fairy bluebirds calling in the trees, and a couple of birds here that I just thought were fabulous, which this one is the black and red broadbill. Stunning bird, not very cooperative. Lots of birds, I don't know why, they always sit with the back to us, but you can see absolutely beautiful bird, and just a stunning blue bill, just gorgeous. And this one here, a blue-winged leaf bird, absolutely beautiful bird, and that gorgeous green colour, very gorgeous indeed. Quite a lot of butterflies and odonata here. We struggled a bit with identifying some of these. Now, I've put this down as a copper damselfly, which I suspect it probably isn't. I actually had a bit of a look last night trying to identify them. You can see actually on the body, it is quite copper coloured, so maybe I've got that right, but beautiful image here by Bob Martin. And this was, actually, I think this was one of our guests' favourite species here, a dot-dash sergeant butterfly. This is a banded pitter, which I'm amazed that Bob managed to get a picture of this, and I'm sure that he would like it to be a bit sharper. But actually, this bird was rushed across the road so quickly that it was very easy to miss. But actually, Bob managed to get an image of it going across the road. Beautiful birds. This is a giant water monitor, probably about 4 foot long. And this is another broadbill. This is a banded broadbill, facing the front this time. Again, stunning bird, absolutely beautiful. Another dragonfly. And this is quite a beauty. So this is a golden birdwing. This butterfly probably guessing 5, 6 inches across. Maybe I'm exaggerating. 5 inches across. Absolute beauty. And one of the birds that I think was a real favourite of ours, I've got a few images of these, scarlet minivet, absolutely beautiful. I mean, they're just a fluorescent colour in the trees. I saw some really large groups of these flying around. So as I mentioned, we were keen to track down some of the endangered primate species. This is a black-shanked Duke langur. Sitting high in the trees. They were amazing. They were sitting up high in a family group. And you can see this was really high up. It's actually just looking down at us, and they were watching us walking along the trails below them. Beautiful, beautiful animals. Rhesus macaque. I'm afraid these are not my favourite species. I always feel that they're out to get you somehow, but they're a nice little family group here. One of the favourite things that we did when we were at Katia National Park, there's some mixed bamboo and grassland, and these were open areas where birds would come to forage and mammals would come out to graze. This is a green peafowl. You probably see there are subtle differences between this and the peacocks we're used to seeing. There's that gorgeous sort of bright orange on the face and a lot more green down the front. These are samba deer grazing in this open grassland. We approached this on the back of some of the trucks, so it was fabulous wildlife watching, very relaxed, and just round every corner we were seeing something a bit different. These are samba deer again, females. And this was a real thrill, seeing Gur. Very handsome animals, stunning beasts. And we'll all recognise this, farmyard chicken. This actually is, of course, a red jungle fowl. Beautiful bird. Now then, I tried to identify this rather beautiful damselfly. We had it down as a plain flashwing, and then I went to oriental greenwing. I think we have to say we need to go back and have another look to identify this. Either way, it was very beautiful in this gorgeous iridescent green. This is violet cuckoo, again, with its back to us. And this was a white-browed picolet. Beautiful little thing and very obliging. Look at those claws on it, though, incredible. And this was another beautiful butterfly. This is a tailed jay, the green one on the left-hand side. Pete managed to get an image of this, but absolutely, it was the only one we saw. Really stunning butterfly. So we had 3 nights at Katien, and then we were off on the bus. So here's a picture of the bus. Maybe I exaggerated with 25 seats. Anyway, it's very comfortable. And here is Min telling us about where we're going next. He was full of stories, very interesting guy, and open to talk about all sorts of things. So he was full of stories about the war, about the past. He kept us updated with some of the floods that were happening in the area, in particular actually around where he lived. So our next accommodation is actually very different. This was just roadside stalls selling all sorts of fruit. I always get fascinated by these fruit stalls. And just showing you where we are here. So we're Ho Chi Minh City. We've travelled north of Ho Chi Minh to Katien, and now we're travelling further north to Dalat. Dalat is a bit higher up, so the altitude's higher, and here we are at breakfast here. I think this was our favourite breakfast. You can see an array of fruit here. A lot of the fruit, we actually didn't know what it was, but we ate it all, and it was very delicious, and we had a very charming host. This actually was someone's favorite place. It was just great. And this hotel is actually in a city. So we got acquainted with some of the interesting driving in Vietnam. I don't think any of us actually worked out the rules, but we were kept safe by our driver, who obviously didn't know what the rules were. So we're slightly at higher altitude here. So we've got we're at 1,500 meters. We go higher than that, and we're looking out for some of Vietnam's endemic species here. So a bit of walking, a bit of uphill. And I should just say that most of the walking we did on this holiday was on flat tracks. This was a bit more uphill, and I think one of our guests didn't come on this. She just stayed back and sat in the shade lower down the mountain. But beautiful, and you can see it's warm, but we've actually got, we've got layers on. We weren't feeling overly hot, just took it at a steady pace. So a very different habitat. You see there's a lot more pine. This was a particularly narrow bit of the track. And this was one of the endemic species. This is an Anam minivet. You can see it's slightly different to the minivet I showed you earlier. It's got a grey head and slightly more orange than that scarlet. The female scarlet minivet is actually black and yellow. This is a street spider hunter. And here, this was actually my favourite species of the trip. This is a Paris peacock butterfly, just stunning. I mean, it's just unbelievable that something like that exists. It looks like a made-up thing, but absolutely beautiful. And this was an oak leaf butterfly. I think it's got other names, but that was the name I've given it. Again, absolutely stunning. But when it closes its wings, it becomes invisible. It just looks like an oak leaf. Rather beautiful image of a cicada taken by Pete, I think. And whilst we were in Dalat, we did some roadside birding. We went out in the evening, and we went out for oriental scops owl. Got some nice views of that. So this is just one of our roadside birding forays. And this was one of our favourite birds. This was a white-throated rock thrush. And Ben was really thrilled to get this bird. Again, a beautiful bird, high altitude species. This is a grey-crowned Croceus. I think that's how it's pronounced. Anyway, it was a beautiful bird, and it actually came into a call, but Min's ear was incredible. He certainly picked up, if there was a bird about, he'd hear it. So this was great to see this, because I think they're sometimes quite difficult to see, but we saw one of these almost immediately arrived in the area. This is a grey-headed canary flycatcher. We saw these quite regularly, but a lovely bird. This was a favourite species. This is a mountain tailor bird, beautifully marked, and just charming bird. I think that was one of Elaine's favourite species, although we all enjoyed them. Oh, another scarlet minivet. And this is a street scene in Dalat. You can see Christmas tree. They were preparing for Christmas. We were there in November. You can see people are sort of a bit wrapped up here. So definitely cooler. And again, you can see lots of mopeds. Not quite as hectic as Ho Chi Minh, though. And one of the things that we did that we all just loved, I love markets, I think most of us love markets, that we we went to the market in Dalat, and Dalat's actually, because it's high altitude, it's got it's got a lot of farms and a lot of produce is produced there, which includes, hi, I think someone else has just joined us. So lots of strawberries produced, lots of aubergines, and all these are all sort of dried fruits, an amazing array. We all sort of wondered how on earth all this stuff gets sold. So these are the greenhouses that, where they grow all the strawberries. Hi, Mike and Margaret. Thanks for joining us. So these were just some arty shots I took of the strawberries because they look so beautiful and everything was so beautifully presented. So Mike and Margaret, I've just been talking about Katien, which was where we stayed at the beginning of the trip, which is in the south of Vietnam. And then we moved up to a higher altitude area called Dalat. And we have done some birding. We aren't just going around a market, but at the moment I'm just telling you about the market because we all really loved it. Just seeing all the local produce, again, how beautifully presented it was. These orchids were beautiful, but I think quite a lot of orchids actually get taken directly out of the forest, which is a bit concerning. Colin enjoying the sights and sounds. Quite easy to take pictures of the market because it all stays still and is quite close. But you can see just most of the things we'd no idea what they were. Another view of the bus, and the reason I took this shot was that we were actually getting our lunch here. So breakfast was often fruit. Sometimes it was a bread roll with cheese, and the cheese, I have to say, is just a triangle of, is it Mad Cow? Happy Cow? Laughing Cow cheese. But it kept us going, and actually they did beautiful bread in Vietnam, which is I think a French recipe. It was really good. But for lunch, sometimes we would just have a sandwich, and this was a sandwich shop that filled rolls with all sorts of things. And again, I'm just showing in the bus. This is what we travelled around in all the time, and I think we all loved the accommodation on the bus. Cake shops everywhere, selling all sorts of weird and wonderful combinations. So we were now going through a pagoda. We were looking for a white-chested laughing thrush in the pagoda grounds. Beautiful, peaceful area. Me and Min. And then the rest of the group. It was beautiful here. And some of you will recognise the faces here. We've got Min on the left and Lynn Osborne, Pete Seacombe, Pat and Bob Martin, Caroline and Paul Hastillo, Elaine, and Colin isn't on the photograph. Maybe he took the photograph. Elaine and Colin George, as Sarah Douglas and myself. One of the beautiful butterflies that we saw, this was a red Helen swallowtail, beautifully captured. I think this was one of Pete's, could have been one of Bob's, could have been one of Paul's, could have been one of Elaine's, but either way, a beautiful capture and a beautiful butterfly. And this was another bird that we saw frequently, white-breasted kingfisher. We saw a lot of these throughout the trip. And I mean, these are seen all over Asia, but nonetheless, always stunning to see. This was one of our evening outings. Again, we're in Dalat. And we're looking for endemics again. This is an Annam barbet. Rather beautiful. Here we are birding again. I think we were looking at a hooded oriole here. Found this ginormous stick insect in the tortoise. This was about 6 inches long. So Mike and Margaret, just to orientate you again, because you didn't see the beginning of the presentation. So we're traveling from Ho Chi Minh City in the south. working our way north, and I've just been talking about Dalat, which is a sort of slightly higher altitude area. And from there, we're going to fly to Da Nang, which is our next location. Very different again. So we're actually in a high-rise hotel in Da Nang. We're on the coast. So the coast is to our right from this picture. And Da Nang is actually quite an interesting place. It's got an amazing bridge, which Lynn had researched, which looks like a dragon. And the bridge on a Friday night lights up and spits forth fire and water. And we thought, oh, let's go and have a look at this. So after dinner, we all went out to have a look at it. I have to say it was a bit of a damp squib, but dinner was very good. So we're here primarily to see red-shanked Duke Langer. Here's the dragon, and there are the people waiting to see it spit forth water and steam. And you can see the dragon here is that sort of green light. It changes colour all the time. Dinner, we had lots of seafood here, fabulous seafood, prawns, live in the tanks. But here we are overlooking Da Nang here. So our hotel is somewhere down below. But here we're looking for the red-shanked Duke Langer again, absolutely beautiful primate and an endangered primate. But we did manage to see it, and we managed to get some pretty good photographs of it too. So you can see absolutely beautiful. They've got white tails, and I spotted one in the canopy, and all I saw was this long white tail. And I thought, well, that can't be it. But that's exactly what it was. And you can see on this image actually that that's why it's called a red-shanked duke. If you look at the lower legs, it actually shows that red. And you can also see the white on the tail. So we visited another pagoda. Pete caused a bit of a stir here that these young lads wanted a photograph taken with him. And on route between our different locations, we do some roadside birding. Here we were looking for Vietnamese greenfinch. I think we had night heron here. I think everybody was posing, which is why Bob's laughing. We were all pretending to be bird watching. Oh, I think we were actually bird watching, all in different directions here, you'll note. So from Da Nang, where we had the red-shanked Duke Langer, we are stopping at, I'm not sure how you pronounce this, but I'll say it's Huey. So Huey was, we stopped here for a bit of culture, visiting this very interesting fort. Min is very knowledgeable about everything, not just birds, but he's got all the sort of history of Vietnam. So he was able to tell us a lot about this fort. It was just a fleeting stop. We could have spent several hours here. And we had a great lunch stop here, actually, which where there was a lot of information about the Vietnam War. More food. Black kites we saw throughout our trip. Oh, more food. Food was quite a feature. I have to say that this was probably one of the only places we didn't enjoy the food, but there's an excellent restaurant nearby. So we're a bit further north here, and we hit some bad weather. So I think we'd have to say we're a bit disappointed with the weather, but we can't do anything about that. And it was unseasonal. But that did mean that some of these beautiful rice paddies were flooded, which meant there were quite a few. We had spot-billed duck here. And you can see, we can just see the scenery. It was so frustrating because it obviously is absolutely beautiful. This is all sort of limestone cast habitat and just beautiful, but we couldn't really enjoy it as much as we might have done. But the water buffalo definitely enjoyed it. Very photogenic. This is a great miner. We saw these here. They certainly spent a lot of time around the water buffalo, as this very handsome white-shouldered starling. Whilst we were here, we saw Siberian ruby throat as well. It wasn't very obliging for photographs. Here we are, just enjoying the outlook here. Came back to this location a couple of times because there's quite a lot to seek out. But unfortunately, you can see that the weather did mean that we didn't enjoy the scenery quite as much as we would have done, which hopefully this year we won't get this rain. Umbrellas were very useful, and the bird didn't seem to mind too much. This is a very damp racket-tailed drongo. I have a feeling this was where everybody stayed in the vehicle whilst me and Min got out. I don't blame everyone for staying in. Not possibly the best shot, but one of the birds that we saw when we were birding in the rain here, a common sultan tit. And you can see that people are still smiling, even though it's raining. And Min is still holding forth about history. This was an area where there'd been quite a lot of action during the Vietnamese War. Flooded river. And one of the favourite species of the trip, this greater crimson sunbird, was in the grounds of our hotel. Absolutely beautiful bird. Delayed us setting off a bit because we all wanted to try and get photographs. So from one national park to another, we're at Cuc Phuong National Park now. And there's some blue sky, excellent. And we did a mixture here of the bus driving us through in the very early morning, trying to pick up some early morning species along the trail, and then walking along the trail. Lovely accommodation here, very simple, but you can see all this beautiful topiary, and sort of felt like we were really in the rainforest here. So very simple, but really in the thick of the forest here. This is one of our breakfast stops. Beautiful pancakes and ginger tea. This was one of our favourite species of the trip. This was a Tonkin partridge, which Min managed to call across the track with his tape, which was quite incredible that he managed to do that, and that Bob managed to get a photograph of it. This is buff-throated babbler. This was much more cooperative. Great to see it. Beautiful little bird. Just checking the notes, excuse me. And then a very lovely other bird. This is a rufous-throated fulvetter. Again, this one was much more cooperative. This is Asian barred owlet. And here we are persevering along the trail. No leeches here. Mike and Margaret, you missed me talking about leeches, which we did have at the beginning of the holiday, but actually we didn't have them again. We also weren't particularly bothered by mosquitoes, which was quite a blessing. And we were still smiling despite the rain. These leaves are amazing. The insects bite these holes in the leaves whilst the leaves are furled or all furled up. And so as they unfurl, they create these amazing circles. Beautiful undergrowth in the forest. And then this was one of our final stops. We were going out on sampans that were Rowed, I was going to say driven, they were rowed by local people, and it was a community project where the local people, each day, different local people would get to row the sampans, which meant that the money from that was spread throughout the community. This was definitely one of our favourite days, our favourite experience. I think after we'd had 2 or 3 days of bad weather, it was great to be in the sunshine and the warm. So we were here looking for particular species. We were looking for another langur. We're looking for Delacour's langur, which you find up on these rather beautiful cliffs. As we went through the water, there were lots of different dragonflies and these beautiful bright pink water lilies. We were looking for blue rock thrush as well. We saw up on the cliffs. And we did see the Delacour's langur. And I don't know who got this photograph, but this was quite a long way away. So I'm pretty impressed. And doesn't it look weird? It looks as though it's got like big white pantaloons on, but a beautiful, beautiful primate. And this was the area where we're most likely to see it. And I think there were several whilst we were looking for the. So here we are. They're up on these hillsides here. So we left the sampans and making our final journey now just a bit further north to Hanoi. And this is just the sort of thing that we see as we're driving around past these family tombs. Again, beautiful scenery. And then we're into the city, and these incredible mosaics line the roads as we went into Hanoi. And the houses sort of squeezed in, all different styles of houses, all different shapes and sizes. And then we arrive in this amazing restaurant, absolutely incredible. And I think we couldn't believe our eyes, really. This restaurant offered every conceivable type of food, most of which was unrecognizable, but some of it was very familiar, and we could eat as much as we want. So this was our last stop before we went to the airport. And it was beautiful. It was full of ponds with koi carp in and these gorgeous lanterns. So we're reaching the end of our trip now. And I just want to reiterate thanks to all the guests that were with me. Thanks to Tanya once again, to Min and Richard who put this together. Min was an amazing guy to have to work beside. And of course, our guests took all these wonderful photographs, and we had lots of fun, and very much hoping that we will travel again together. In fact, I know that we are going to. So here we all are, end of the trip, having had a fabulous meal. Thank you. Whipped through that holiday. This is going to be an 18-day holiday in November this year, a couple of days longer than this year, just to kind of give us a bit more time in some of the locations. But if you've got any questions, please feel free. I think that Ailey will switch you back on because I don't know how to do that.